Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Last week, the stranglehold of Antonino Sammarco loosened as Anders Meyer and Carl Winkler took their first race wins of the season when we visited Jerez. Tonight, the Apex Racing League GT3 trophy goes to Road Atlanta for round 6 of the season and the start of the second half of the championship. This stream is being brought to you on Apex Racing TV. My name is Sam Fitzpatrick and I have alongside me Ron Mons for this round, with Samuli Kumo bringing you this stream on our YouTube channel. And Ron, we go to a circuit which the drivers will know very well. We went to Jerez last time. It was mainly drivers' first visits to that track, and this Road Atlanta circuit could not be much more different when it comes to experience levels, because between Petit Le Mans and just absolute fan favoritism of this track, they will know this circuit like they can drive the whole track with their eyes closed.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up the fact that a lot of drivers prefer this track, because I was going to talk about how wonderful this circuit is, how it's one of the best in America, and I definitely didn't want to sound like just a total all-American freedom-fighting patriot when I was saying that, but this track is awesome. I love it. It's, as I said, one of my favorite tracks in all of America, and probably one of the best in all of America. It's held some classic events all throughout the year. It was the home of the SCCA the SCCA runoffs for quite a few years, and has also been the home of Petit Le Mans for quite some time, the season finale of the IMSA schedule. So many of these drivers have a lot of experience on it, whether it's running in official events or just running for fun during the weekday. So I'm sure these drivers are definitely going to be a lot more confident in the track they're driving on tonight.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely for certain for tonight, and yeah, should be some real good reaction, albeit Jerez was a bit chaotic. We saw some absolutely incredible attempts at manoeuvres, at least, even if not all of them necessarily were pulled off. Let's have a look at the championship standings going into this round. We've now applied the drop scores, so there is a fair bit of a change. Antonino Sammarco up top, and you can see how him and Carl Winkler are well clear of the rest. Sammarco with some 5 victories so far this season. Winkler only with 1, but he did win the last race that we had. Race 2 at Jerez was not the fastest driver by any means, but Carl, who has been extremely consistent this season, picked up the pieces thanks to the reverse grid and managed to take a crucial race victory. You can see the rest are very far away already at this mid part of the season. In the Pro-Am Championship, it is also looking fairly close over there. With Alexander Scaret just edging ahead of Eric Rosseth and Christopher Otterholt. But dare I say, I think this Pro-Am Championship, honestly, Ron, is the most topsy-turvy. It seems like someone different is leading every single round, and I think even though those top 3 have got a bit of a break, I think there are still a couple of others further down who can still challenge for the top spots.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I think the points are a little bit, I wouldn't say disingenuous, obviously, but I think it doesn't paint the whole picture of how the season has been. It's been absolutely chaotic, and as you mentioned there, Jerez last round was very much chaotic compared to some of the first races we had so far this season. So I think we might see a little bit more of that, and the topsy-turvy nature that we saw in Pro-Am definitely continues in Am. I remember first race of the season, David Vey, who's third in the points at this point, won, and you can see it's just really close. You can see between Christopher Crook in P5 in the standings and Yannick Willems, you could just see there's less than 40 points. There's only 36 points between those drivers, so a really close fight here in Am.
Yeah, and once again, it's a class where there's been different drivers performing very well. Vey was so good at Watkins Glen, and he didn't really carry that into the previous round at Jerez. What I can say is that currently the pole sitter, well, the absolute pole sitter, it's not going to change in the AMs, is Jeremy de Boiver. Of course, for this format, we have 10 minutes of the AMs going out, then 10 minutes of the Pro-Ams, and then 12 minutes for the Pros. And it's de Boiver, Hawk, and Muldercleave up in the top 3 in the AMs. In the top 3 in the Pro-Ams is Rosseth, Bjorkland, and Montini. And top 3 in the Pros at the moment, Anders Meyer leading the way. Great to see Kazuki Fujita out there. He was a bit concerned that he might be a bit too ill to take part, but he's out there. But Anders was absolutely phenomenal last time out, Ron. He was dominant, and it was Samarco levels of dominance. Perhaps the changing of the guard has happened. We do expect this circuit to be much more favourable to McLaren compared to Jerez, but as it stands at the moment, Meyer with a decent margin.
Yeah, Meyer put together a fantastic drive last time out in Jerez. Certainly in Heat 1, he was dominant from start to finish, pretty much led all the laps. Of course, Heat 2 was a bit more dramatic with the other reverse grid situation for the other start of Heat 2. He had to battle and claw to get the position he did, was involved in a couple incidents as well, but still Anders Meyer was definitely a force to be reckoned with in all of Jerez. And if he had a few things go better for him in Heat 2 last time out in Jerez, I think he would have probably been able to take a double win. So that was just a very big statement there for Myers, and currently he's making a very big statement right now on pole over Samarco by 0.4 of a second. But I will say, Samarco, we have seen him claw some pretty big gaps. I believe he was the fastest in the practice session right before this broadcast started. So I think in the final few minutes here of this qualifying session, I wouldn't count out Antonio Samarco just yet.
He does usually get quicker and quicker, and sometimes he can pull out a very strong time to round out the session. Thomas Rangen performed very well, of course, back at Watkins Glen. He managed to take the race 2 victory on that occasion. There was a video posted up earlier on the Apex Racing TV and Apex Racing League social media accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure to give them a follow to watch more videos like that, because it's very much worth making a highlight of Thomas's very positive reaction after winning that race. It was fantastic to see. He was so pleased to win from 9th on the grid. As Matteo Cornagi, he moves up to 4th position, by the way, with the 1:17 with an improvement, but it looks like he is going to go for another push lap here with 5 minutes of this qualifying remaining.
I will say one thing that we see a little bit of, we've seen throughout the season how sometimes the qualifying order can be pretty mixed up between the pro drivers, AM drivers. We saw Matteo Cornagi there have a little bit of an off there. There's a driver going off there. I believe that's Kieran Smart in the Scotland entry there. Tough for him. He has a mistake there coming through the very fast kink that has caught out a lot of drivers. Yeah, Kieran Smart there in the Track Scotland team car there. He had a big moment coming through the kink there. That's definitely going to be a trouble spot for these drivers tonight, because that's a corner where you don't have a lot of margin for error. You have that giant killer curb on the outside. You have a big bump to negotiate with as well. But he had a very tough break there. Certainly that man, Marcus Beifeld, put together a fantastic time there, and right now is less than 0.3 of a second off of Anders Meyer.
Yeah, Beifeld had a weird round last time at Earth where he was basically stuck behind Niels Isaacson for the entire race, but Isaacson kept on basically being a snowplow for him. Went for dives, forced himself wide, forced another driver wide, and by default gained 2 places. And I think that happened 3 times across the meeting. He didn't really pull off that many overtake, yet he was up about 6 places in both races. It was very odd. Marcus isn't going to need to gain too many places tonight if he can start there, because we are going back to the 60-minute races. No double race format, it's just a straight 60-minute race. Should be a little bit of early prep for these drivers before Petit Le Mans, and so will be quite useful for them. As Olivieri, he moves up to 6th position, but Fujita improving. Not fantastic sector times right now, a personal best sector 3. I'm not sure if this will be an improvement for the Japanese.
Still putting together a decent drive right now in qualifying. We've seen throughout the season how after the first round in, God, I'm trying to think, it was at Spa, yeah. Can tell my fantastic knowledge of this series at Spa, the season opener here on the ARL GT3 Trophy Series. He put together a very good drive and was really the only person that could challenge Antonio Sammarco's dominance over that race. But ever since then, he's struggled in qualifying, has started pretty far down the order, and it's hurt him dearly in some of these races. So right now, I'm sure he's pretty happy with a top 10 qualifying position right now, with only about 3 minutes left in this session.
Yeah, he's usually faster in the race than qualifying, isn't he? I remember Fuji was a very good example where he qualified outside the top 10, and then in the race, I think he was close to the podium by the end of the event, despite a couple of setbacks. So do expect him to gain places, but it's so close. He's only a 10th off the second row. It's just ever so close between that 3rd down to 8th. And once again, Sammarco still not improving out there, albeit he is on a better lap. But 2 personal best sectors for Sammarco. Watch out for the man currently sitting in 4th to move up the order. Vangen just going on to a quick lap is as well for himself. And many other pro drivers still to put in times, but Vangen's into the walls. Fujita improves to 6th. Vangen keeps his 5th place, but that will be the end of his qualifying session, because you need to start your lap time with about 1 minute and 20 remaining in the session in order to get it in. So Marco, some personal best sectors, still 0.3 of a second back, and he's not pushing on this lap, I believe. He will be starting on 3rd position at best.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think he's still in a pretty decent position. I think we saw a lot of chaos last week at Jerez, and I think at a track like this, which is still definitely a lot more tight and twisted than we saw from the opening 3 races of the season at Road America, Fuji, and Spa. Those tracks were fairly straight line and flat out heavy. At a track like this, where they do have that very long back straightaway where they used to land planes here back many years ago, for reasons that I don't think I should say here on Apex Racing TV. But I think at a track like this, which is a lot more tight and technical than we've seen throughout the rest of the season, I think we might see some more chaos. So I think even though Antonio Sammarco isn't going to get that clean air being on that front row, I think he's still within a very good shot to try and get a very good result in tonight's 60-minute shootout.
That's taking his standard position right next to Kieran Smart ever since Road America, which I think was round 3 of the championship. Those two have been absolutely glued to one another. They cannot get away, and once again they're right next to each other. We did have the 3rd Scottish driver of Stuart Wyness join them at Jerez. Sammarco does improve again. That was odd for Sammarco. I honestly didn't think he was pushing on that at the start of that lap. It looked like he was leaving some some room to spare on the circuit, but he was absolutely pushing. I feel like an absolute numpty right now. It was an improvement, but he's still 1/4 of a second off the pace, and that's going to be the end of the session, because PJ Kleissens, who as per is starting lower down than what his pace really indicates he should be, in 21st position. He has gone back to the pits. We'll let the timer take over. We are going to have a full formation lap for this race, just give the drivers a little bit more time to warm up their tyres, and so we have got all the time in the world to go through this grid, because this is going to be about another 3 minutes until we actually get underway. So here is the grid then. Anders Meyer on pole position, Marcus Byfeld in 2nd place, and it's Antonino Sammarco missing out on pole position for the 2nd race in a row. Then it's Niels Erik Isaacson in 4th, Thomas Vangen, Kazuki Fujita, Matteo Colnagi and Emmanuel Olivieri in 8th. Then it's top of the Pro-Ams, Eric Rosset, another strong performance from him ahead of his Norwegian rival Kittel Larsen. Carl Winkler, our race winner from last time out, second place in the championship, a little bit lower than what Carl would be hoping for. He would certainly be moving up through the order though. Kim J. Bjorklund runs in 12th place, and that is second place out of the Pro-Ams. Then it's Jeremy De Boyver, an amazing qualifying for Jeremy, top of the Ams. A few of our Ams had really good qualifying, in fact. He's ahead of Marcus Gunzelman, Gordon Hogg, Simon Muldercleave, and David Vey. Four of the amateurs within 5 places of one another. Then it's Bass and Smart, Montini Kleissens, Asfalg David, Willems, Scarrett, Otterholt, Crook, Verm, and then it's Arthur Hubka Merler, who is new to the series, albeit has taken part in Apex Racing League events in the past, and Tom Weston, our 2 rookies on the 14th, 15th row of the grid. Hopefully they'll be nice to one another. Then it's Thomas Pugh, Stuart Wyness, Cesar Sabrel, Paul Collishaw, Leung Lau, Nick Yanni, Simon Andre Livingston, Navarro De Boyver, Alex Bevans, Colin Sampson, good to see Colin back, Matthew McBride, and D-Day Devlamnik, rounding out the 42 cars. A little bit of a larger field for tonight as the drivers start their formation lap.
As per usual, quick shout out to Alex Bevans with the Koala team. It's kind of a running joke on these broadcasts now.
New livery as well.
Yeah, new livery for him. So hopefully the new livery will give him a renewed sense of luck. I know he was involved in an incident, a couple of incidents, I believe, last week at Jerez. So hopefully for him, a new livery will be turning a new leaf, and hopefully he can have some more luck tonight. But one thing I want to mention before we get this race underway is now that we have a 60-minute race compared to the other 2 heat races that we've seen for the last 2 rounds, one thing that we will see a little bit of that we haven't seen in a couple of weeks is the other strategy game, because we saw that quite a lot throughout the early part of the year. We were expecting some drivers to do certain strategies, and then they threw a complete curveball at us. So going into tonight's race at a very tight technical track, certainly a lot more tight and twisty than the other previous races where we had just 1 race. So I think we might see a lot more different strategies that we've seen. We see a lot of drivers usually just take 2 tires during their pit stop. So what do you think the drivers are going to do tonight, Sam?
Yeah, I think the 2 rear tyres is a common tactic because it adds nothing to your pit stop. I mean, they're not going to be short fueling tonight. This is a decently high fuel consumption circuit. Pretty much all the tracks I've been to a lot of high-speed circuits this season. And so, you know, if you're stationing for 14 seconds anyway taking fuel, so you may as well take the tyres as well. All 4 seems a little bit much, and we haven't really seen many drivers do that. It's probably going to be 2 or 0, and of course the only reason why you take 0 is to maintain the balance of your car. So I'm guessing 2, and it is worth everyone, you know, watching along. Keep an eye out on the jacks. Are the drivers elevating when they go into their pit stall, or are they staying still? Because that will tell us.
I think I can definitely agree with you on the drivers that may take no tires during a pit stop to try and keep the balance that they have in their cars. Certainly at a track like this with a lot of very challenging corners, the balance is very important for these drivers to feel confident in their race cars.
Yes, and we're going to see who is the most confident of everyone in just a few minutes time, or a few moments time, because Anders Meyer for the 2nd week in a row has taken the pole position. What can he do with it? The 120 leads us away. We are racing at Road Atlanta, and it's a fantastic start for Samarco, who's right on the back of Meyer. He'll be up into 2nd place because Beifeld has not got away well, but he might even go for the lead, like the McLaren driver, but he has to settle for 2nd place, but a real profitable start for him there. Thomas Wangen up 2 places as well from 4th. It's a poor start for Beifeld, who's now lost out to Kolnagi as well. He moves up into 5th position as the drivers start going too wide through the SS section for the first time. It's Meyer leading Samarco out in the lead then.
Commiserations there for Marcus Beifeld. Had a terrible start there. Might have had a big puff of smoke there. I think he might have got a lot of chaos going on. I saw a big puff of smoke there. There's a big puff of smoke from Kettle Larson going off. That's a very unusual place to go off. That's going through the other shortcut there. But another driver going off there was Rousseff. Yeah, Rousseff having a spin there. I believe that's at turn 6. Let me check my track map real quick. I believe, yes, that is turn 6, right towards the bottom of the circuit. He is going to be was stopped there for quite a long time, trying not to have an unsafe rejoin. But tough start for a lot of those drivers, tough start for Byfeld and Eric Rosethba. Fantastic start for Antonio Samarco, who, even though he has been up at the front for a lot of these races, I think he is sick and tired of running just barely in the podium. He wants to grab wins here.
He sure does, as we see a really tight battle between Winkler and Isaacson, two of the fastest drivers in the series. Isaacson down 3 places from the start, Winkler up 3 places, and they have converged for that battle for 7th position. I think there might be a bit of debris potentially on the circuit, and there is a Ferrari rejoining Hupke Merler, our new driver to the series, or one of our 2 new drivers to the series, and he's going to take his faster pair early on in this race, not the site that he wanted. You can see the amount of damage on that car. But really disappointing for Otterholt because he took the Pro-Am pole position and was really on course to perhaps take the championship lead off line. Currently Scoret's leading the way there, and that has really dampened his opportunities. Just damage limitation now for him, running all the way down in 38th place overall, down 27 places. And Kettle Larsen, you mentioned an odd place for him to go up. He nearly cut the entire circuit there, taking the short layouts, and he's down 27 places himself.
I would say that he got a little bit confused there and tried to go down the offshoot of the circuit that they usually use for the club layout, but anyone that's been on iRacing for long enough and has driven the Road Atlanta club layout will know that that's not a track you really want to remember or ever make a mistake at, because it has such awful flow that I probably got jumped at a rap battle. But jokes about bad track design notwithstanding, there's a very good drive here from Otterholt right now, up 6 positions here. So he gets another position there on Willems, who is running farther behind in the AM pack right now. So I'm sure he wants to try and piece together a very good drive and try and maintain that championship lead. Right now he's about 20 points ahead of the other driver in second in the AM category, but I'm sure he wants to put together a much better drive and break into the top 20 overall to try and maintain that championship lead.
Yeah, and apologies, I think I may have said that Otterholt was the one who took the Pro-Am pole. It was, of course, Rosset who took the pole and dropped back at the start. But this is nice to see. You always love to see like a snake of cars, particularly around Road Atlanta. It's one of the best sights in sports car racing. See drivers slaloming their way through the S's section. I've seen that plenty of times so far tonight. Wyness is up ahead of Thomas Firm now. He's up 7 places from his race start. Always counts on Wyness to gain a bunch of places by the end. I think he'll be safely in the top 20 by the end of this event, honestly. And you mentioned Willems, you know, a bit further down, as here comes this renewal of this battle. Isaacson losing out now to Winkler. So Winkler much better race pace than qualifying pace, it looks like. He is already 7 seconds off the lead. However, he has made up a fair few places. He's up into the top 7 now.
Winkler hasn't been the most flashy driver so far this year. He's really just been keeping it in the background, keeping his car on the circuit. Right now, those drivers going very close there, coming through the first corner. Those 2 drivers battling there. That's Oliveri there and Isaacson there, going side by side and nearly making contact going through turn 1. That could have ended in disaster for those drivers, but they managed to get through cleanly. But getting back to Carl Winkler, he hasn't really stood out to me throughout the season. He's kind of been a dark horse contender, while Antonio Samarco has just been going out there and grabbing wins like they're going out of style. Winkler has just put together a very quiet season so far, as we see a nice move there from Oliveri going down the inside turn 6. But Winkler has put together a quiet season so far this year, and it's worked out nice for him. Right now, he's really the only driver at this point in the season that can really challenge Samarco for that championship lead. So good stuff from Winkler here as he runs in the 7th position early on.
Yeah, solid results for him. I think Winkler's finished in the top 6 every race so far this season. And that's very much testament to his consistency. And of course did take that first race win of the season last time out at Jerez. A couple of moves further back. And this is David Vey up ahead of Jeremy De Boyver. So De Boyver started at top of the AMS, but not anymore. Montini is round. Now he needs to wait for all these cars to go past. He's going to have to let go another 5 places or so, maybe even close to 10 places, because they keep on coming. Now there's Bevans and Samson coming back, but he's just about found a gap. But that's painful for Tommaso Montini. He's down to 38th position after that incident.
Just being stopped on the side of the track like that, regardless of whether you're in our position, Sam, just looking at as a broadcaster, or whether you're behind the wheel and just having to wait there for 1,000 years, it feels like, just stuck on the side of the road, trying not to be involved in an incident or have an unsafe rejoin and annoy your competitors. That's just torturous, having to sit there for so long. So I really feel bad for Montini, whose race has been essentially destroyed with that small little mistake that cost him dearly.
The Marco gaining a lot down this straight. You can see it visibly, just that gap coming down, gaining 0.3 of a second on that stretch. Of course, a lot of that will be the slipstream, but dare I say the majority of it is the characteristics of the car. So Marco's staying close. That gap has actually been, on the most part, smaller than this. It's been hovering around 1/10 of a second at times. Bangin keeping up, Cornage keeping up, and Beifeld as well after that poor start for the man who started on the front row of the grid. Then there's the gap to Fujita, who on that last lap lost 1/4 of a second to these gyros. It's not a whole lot of a difference, but it's enough for that gap to gradually grow. So it does look increasingly like it's going to be a 5-car battle for this race win, which is something we haven't really seen so far this season. I think Jerez Race 2 was the closest race we've seen so far this season, with 3 drivers in the mix with a few laps to go, even 4 drivers in the mix at the halfway stage. But right now we're looking at 5, albeit with much of the race remaining.
At this stage of the race, I gotta agree with you. I think all these drivers have a very good shot to win this thing, and one driver that I'll have to keep my eyes on is rooting for Mattia Colnaghi. You don't usually root for drivers as a broadcaster, but I still feel really bad for the awful jinx I pulled off on him a couple weeks ago at Road Americas. We're seeing some nice dicing here up towards the other front of the train between 2 BMWs there. That's between Otterholt and Willems there, and we're seeing some more battling here between Mercedes there of Bass and Smart there. Those 2 drivers from Scotland going side by side, going down this very long back straight over here, and about to go on the brakes for turn 10. And Kieran Smart gets ahead of Bass going into the chicane there. But man, it's at this stage of the race, Mattia Colnaghi, I gotta keep my eye on him. He's always been a fairly ruthless competitor. He definitely has the grit and tenacity to try and score that win, and he's shown some very good pace so far. And of course, I do want to make it up for him because I feel awful about that drinks I pulled off on him a couple weeks ago in Road America, where I was mentioning, yeah, he's having a very quiet race, and the next thing you know, he crashes. So I'm still trying to, I don't know if it's kind of like make reparations with him. So I think I'll keep my eye on Mattia Colnaghi, who's actually moved up a position there and moves into the final podium spot on Wangen there. So right as I talk about him, this time instead of crashing as soon as I talk about him, he now moves up into the final podium spot. But right now he is in a hornet's nest here with 2 other Porsches.
Yeah, and of course these guys need to make sure they don't lose each other too much time either. Colnage is clearly feeling like he's faster than Bangen, so wants to get ahead, and I think Bangen, a smart driver, will not fight that one too much and will stay in 4th position. Beifeld's very passive driver. He will stay in 5th. I imagine he'll be saving a lot of fuel back in that 5th position as it stands. David Bay is up into 12th position, so Bay has now got past Horg. It's fantastic that we got the 4 amateur drivers all with one another. And it's Bay who has had the best start of all of them. Started in 17th place overall, 3rd position out of the AMS. And he's now up into 12th position overall and 1st place of the AMS. Also, well done to Kim Andre Bjorklund. He's having, under the radar, a fantastic round. Obviously was very much helped out by the spin for Eric Rosseth, who spun out in front of him at the head of the Pro-Am lead earlier on lap 1 of the race. But credit to Bjorklund, he has kept it clean as anything ever since. And once he's got Gunzelman on his tail behind, he's then got a nice 4.5 second gap back. And he's got some 8.5 seconds to the 2nd place Pro-Am driver. So Bjorklund well on course for a comfortable Pro-Am victory tonight.
I'd say besides Gunzelman just really hounding the back of Bjorklund's car, I'm saying right now Bjorklund is probably the driver that's swaying the least on this entire circuit. He's just in a very comfortable position right now. Sure, we're only 10 minutes into this race, but that's still a very good spot to be in. That 9.5 seconds, over 9 seconds clear of the other next driver in the Pro-Am category. So I'm sure even though Gunzelman is hounding him at this stage of the race, I'm sure he is still very comfortable running in the 10th position overall.
Marcus Gunzelman, another driver who's often under the radar, but up 3 places from his start. Not bad for him whatsoever. There's some nice queues of cars going on. Vay's got a queue behind him. In fact, Vay's actually starting to pull away a bit. Well run from the 12th place man. He only got past Horg about a lap ago. look at the gap now, it's up to a second or so. He's trying to get out of draft region. And so whilst one Sim Racing Norway driver in the farm, Bjorklund is doing very well, Hawk will be disappointed by how this one is transpiring at the moment. There's another queue behind Christopher Otterholt, who of course has been making his way up through the order. Dare say Otterholt might be able to pull away from the likes of Willems and Scarets and David and Wyness. And then there's another train behind Leung Liao. Liao currently ahead of Collishaw, Livingston, Rosseth as well, who of course is making his way up through the order. Willems looking very racy on the back of Otterholt, but frankly, Otterholt did pass him a few laps ago, so I doubt this one's going to change too much. However, ahead of them now, they've got Thomas Asphalt, and they might go 3 wide on the back straight.
Ooh, this is going to be very hair-raising stuff here. Those 2 BMWs and a Porsche going 3 wide, going down the very long back straightaway, and you've got Asphalt behind. Actually, no, is that Asphalt? No, that's Scratch behind. You've got a whole bunch of cars dicing and scrapping for every position they can. Asphalt moves up to 19th, gets ahead of Willems, who drops back another position. I'm sure he's a bit disappointed with how this race has gone so far, with Vey running up towards the front. We have Tom Weston there, one of the other AM drivers. He makes a mistake coming through the turn 10 chicane, and he's going to have to be real careful here on the rejoin. That's a koala car behind. Don't destroy the koala car, please. Those drivers are very close there, and Alex Bevins manages to get past, and we have another car off. Oh, wait, no, that's just Tom Weston there, doing a bit of jump action there as he goes through the grass. There's a car off. That's Liao there, Leung Liao, currently running 31st in the BMW. He makes a mistake coming through turn 1, I believe. He's already up 4 positions from where he started, but it would have been even more had he not made that mistake coming through turn 1.
Yeah, and he was at the head of a train. He was sat in front of Collishaw and co. So he must have just felt the pressure eventually there, or maybe contacts between the two of them. There's a possibility. It's turning into a 2-horse race now, honestly. These guys now 3 seconds behind. I think Bang is getting a bit frustrated. He's saying, well, Mate, you overtook me, and since you overtook me, we've just been going slower. So Vangen might think about changing the order here because they're losing touch with the top 2. And up to 3 seconds now, that will take some time to cut down. The good news for Vangen, so he's saving a nice amount of fuel, but it's not going to be relevant if he's got a much larger gap to make up once it comes to the pit stops.
Actually, I think I have a good prop here in my little office space here to describe what we see on screen now between these 3 Porsches, all from different teams, all running in the pro category, all aboard the Colnaghi train. So we got a train going here. It's a mini train. I will say it's a very, very small train here, but definitely a very heated train. Colnaghi, oh, very heated, as you can see. Wagon nearly tried to do a bump and run on Colnaghi as they went to turn 7. That was some nice dicing there, but I now think that Wagon is going to have a bad run coming out of turn 7 and going onto that back straightaway, and I think Beifeld is going to look for a move here.
Beifeld, he could certainly go for it here, but no, he just backs out of it. Very typical of Marcus Beifeld. Of course, new driver to Apex Racing League, only joined the series a little bit late actually. Missed the first couple of rounds. Otherwise, he'd probably be in the top 5 in the championship. He might still end up in the top 10, considering the amount of points that he's been able to score and the drop score, which will certainly help him out when it comes to the couple of rounds that he missed. But yeah, he is in 5th position as it stands, and I doubt, unless something really opens up for him, he'll be moving up anytime soon. Leo, by the way, has just passed Livingston. Just saw that on the timing screen. Very close between Otterholt and Aspaug as well. Of course, we saw Otterholt get past Aspaug a bit earlier on in the race, but Otterholt now has really failed to pull away. And this is a cue. This goes back to Stuart Wyness in 23rd place, and even Thomas Worm might be able to catch up to these guys eventually as well, as they once again have that fantastic S shape of the line of cars through the SS section.
And do I have to break out the harmonica again? We've got more trains forming all throughout this field. Like, I wonder, a track like this, which is a lot more tight and twisty than some of the other tracks we've run on so far this season, like, I wonder if the dirty air is playing a little bit of an effect here, because you don't have too many overtaking opportunities. Certainly the only area to really slipstream past another driver is going down this back straightaway, and it looks like Gordon Haug is going to fall victim to that, as he's now getting overtaken, or it looks like De Boyver is going to try and overtake Haug. going into turn 10. We've got some dicing all throughout this field. Two of the Sim Racing Norway cars involved in this fight between Haug and Moldecleve. And you also got De Boiver and I believe that's Smart that was towards the end of that pack, but had some nice dicing there. There's some more dicing all throughout this field. We've got slicing and dicing. We don't have any sponsors here on Apex Racing TV for knives, but if we did, this would be the perfect place to put it. We got more dicing here. That's very close between Kieran Smart and Simon Moldecleve there. That's nearly contact as they go up the hill nearly into turn 2, and there's Moldecleve spinning. He made contact there with Kieran Smart as they went into turn 3, I believe that is. And unfortunately for Moldecleve, he is a victim of that. He makes contact with a concrete barrier. It wasn't the hardest contact in the world, but I think that's going to cost him dearly in this race.
I mean, one will argue, well, you naturally go to the right here. And multiple people argue, well, it's pretty much a straight in it, so why are you turning to the right? One for the stewards, that one. Moldecleve, his race very much scuppered there. Good news for him. It's not particularly good news, no. Bad news for him is that he's not within the pit window. You need to be within, you want to probably get to about the 22-minute mark before you can pit and get to the end of the race. And he's a few laps short of that, so he needs to limp around with that damaged car for a few laps now, and then pit. At least then he won't have to take an extra pit stop, but he's going to be losing time all the while. As this train is just getting longer. Thomas Verm is now with this train, and Otterholt still, apologies, so Otterholt was overtaken by Asphalt, so Asphalt back ahead into 17th position, and working very racy is Willems as well. Willems will be frustrated championship leader at the moment in the Alps, but you can see Vey, De Boiver and Haug, all his contenders in the championship, they are well up the road at the moment, and he's losing touch with them is the Belgian driver, and he's constantly got Christopher Otterholt sat in front of him, not allowing him to pull away.
Yeah, I think that's a very good observation there. Willems is definitely being a lot more racy even at this early stage of the race, because he is getting frustrated at this point. He sees Vey pulling away. He sees the 3 other drivers in the AM category pulling away. There's another driver in the AM category. This time it's Simon Andre Livingston, who makes a mistake there coming through turn 4, I believe. The Ferrari man, they're racing for Racing Lab Esports. Unfortunately for him, he is going to be out of contention here. This driver here is not out of contention. Gordon Haug, he was involved in this battle with Kieran Smart a couple laps ago, and he's now trying to fight back now. And you also have Bass right now. You've got 2 Scottish drivers and a driver from Norway here battling, coming through the turn 10 chicane, coming through the final series of corners here. We've got 3 different cars, 2 different nationalities, and all 3 drivers trying to claw for every position they can. So I think that was Bass there, clipping the inside curve there quite hard and getting up onto 2 wheels. But one thing about these GT3 cars, which is a lot cooler than open wheels, you can see these drivers just abuse the curbs, and it's always good to see these drivers just use all the track they can. They're saying, hey, I paid for the whole track, I'm going to use the whole track. And we just saw Ethan Bass do that as he hit the inside curb there coming through the final corner and manages to get that position on Haug.
Yeah, Haug slipping down slightly. Remember, he was ahead of Vey at one point, and now he's finding himself 8 seconds behind Vey, and that's all changed in the past 10 minutes or so. Isaacson, who's had a pretty miserable race so far, Isaacson absolutely sent it back at Horath. He loved going for moves at the final chicane, at the final hairpin, apologies. Just time after time, a few car lengths back, no problem, just sending it, and a few of them didn't work. Some of them did, some of them didn't. And he ended up getting some decent results, but it did feel like he could have maybe taken the race to victory if things played out slightly differently, as his teammate Alexander Scaret, our Pro-Am Championship leader, spins around. He nudges the wall now, and he's in that precarious position because there's so little field spread tonight in this series. Scaret has to wait for other drivers to pass, and he's down to 30th position. Miserable stuff for the Norwegian driver.
Surprised he didn't go into the pits there. That was fairly considerable contact there with the concrete barrier, so he stays out for now. He definitely picked up some kind of damage from that incident, but he's going to tough it out and try and make it to the pit window so his race doesn't get affected too bad. But certainly for him, his race is definitely going to be in jeopardy, and certainly his championship lead is going to be in jeopardy. You mentioned right at the start of this broadcast how close the battle is in the Pro-Am category. Just drivers so close, there's little room for error. And I think, unfortunately for Scaret, his championship lead is probably going to be completely gone by the end of tonight. So unfortunately for him, unfortunately for Willems, we have the Pro-Am and the Am championship leaders having really unfortunate nights so far. So I'm sure Antonio Samarco is looking at that and hoping it isn't 3 for 3 tonight, and hoping he doesn't get hit by some kind of falling anvil tonight. I'm sure he's hoping, okay, I just need to have a clean race, even though I'm behind Anders Meyer. I'm still in a pretty good position right now, and I'm ahead of the only driver that's really close to me in championship points. But 2 championship leaders in this series tonight getting hit by falling anvils, and we're not even halfway through the race.
I find where Bjorklund is in the championship. Remarkably down in 13th place at the moment is Bjorklund in the Pro-Am Championship. He is out of it, really. He's got pretty much half the amount of points of Scaret. So even at this halfway stage of the season, Bjorklund isn't going to be able to make that one up. But I'm looking at the rest of the championship and the repercussions of Scaret's bad round. He should still be leading the championship because Vasseth isn't having a good round after his spin, albeit Vasseth doing really well. He's up to 25th place. He was last at the end of lap 1, so he's done amazing well to be that high up. And then, of course, Christopher Otterholtz, who is the highest placed out of those. The top 3 in the Pro-Am Championship, but Otterholtz probably the slowest out of the 3 of them. He could well be caught by the other 2. It's very much a 2-way battle. I was maybe a bit early to call it a 5-way battle earlier on. It is very much a 2-way battle. It is Meyer versus Samarco. Colnage in a comfortable 3rd position. He's not being challenged too much by Vangen. Vangen quite happy to stay behind him. Byfeld then 5th place. Fujita is catching a little bit, and Winkler as well. So we have a nice battle for the last place on the podium. But these 2 are in class there. And of course, if it keeps on going like this, Samarco is saving a decent amount of fuel. And if he can take a little bit less fuel at his pit stop, he could well get ahead of Meyer. And if Meyer wants to win this championship, he really does need to start making up points tonight, because he's already got a big margin to make up.
I think this battle might be heated up. Well, as I say that, we've got the Ferrari there. It looked like he was just going to pull over to the side to kind of let these drivers by. That's certainly the case, but Anders Meyer is trying everything he can to keep Samarco behind. Pulls in behind the Ferrari to try and get a slipstream as they exited turn 7 and went on that massive back straightaway. But you can see that gap between those 2 is the closest it's been so far this race. They are very close to this stage. Antonio Samarco, he is keeping a nice gap to Anders Meyer. So Meyer at this point is definitely feeling the heat as we have the pit stops coming up probably in about, I'd probably say maybe 12 minutes, we'll have to say, when we might see some of the first drivers come in around the minute 35 mark. But still, I think Anders Meyer at this stage of the race.
Oh, what a save! What a save! He's going to lose the lead here, but it could have been so much worse for Anders Meyer, who completely lost adhesion to the circuit on the exit of turn 1, had to slam on the brakes, but only lost about a second. Samarco is our new race leader, but I thought that may have been game, set, match right there, because Meyer was so close to going round.
And also focused on talking about the strategy. I didn't even notice that. We're going to get replay. Just look at the steering wheel. Look at the steering wheel on Anders Meyer's Porsche there. That was a very close call, and unfortunately for him, he loses the lead of the race to Antonio Samarco. He gives up the lead for the first time this race, but still, that could have been even worse for Anders Meyer.
Maybe this is all part of a plan to sit behind Samarco, save fuel. What I would say is that Meyer is going to struggle to overtake Samarco now. Samarco was gaining 0.3 of a second in the back straight behind. Meyer doesn't gain anything. Even in the drafts, that McLaren is so quick, and Meyer just has to sit behind. Has Samarco as well got an extra gear? Is he going to be able to just pull away now in this next stage of the race? Or is he just waiting behind, saving fuel this entire race, and now will start to pull away? I'll keep an eye on that gap, because I think if Samarco has the opportunity to, he will do now, because he doesn't want to be giving Meyer a draft, and therefore giving him a fuel conservation as well. He wants to be pulling away if possible. At least on this lap, Meyer closing the gap slightly, it's back down to 4.5 of a second.
I think the slipstream effect that certainly helps Samarco close quite a lot on Anders Meyer going down the back straightaway. I don't think that's going to work too well in reverse, because you can just see the size difference in these 2 cars. Certainly they're fairly close size-wise, but definitely the Porsche punches a much bigger hole in the air than the McLaren does, and McLaren has always been very fast in a straight line. So I think you mentioned a very good point that I think Anders Meyer is going to have a very tough time to get past Antonio Sammarco. Right now he's actually losing time, gaining a little bit on the straightaways, but what was a 0.3 of a second advantage for Meyer about 2 laps ago has now turned into about a half a second disadvantage to Sammarco.
He's staying up though with him, so that's good for them, and they are continuing to start to pull away against Cornage as well after losing a decent amount of time on that previous lap, so not too bad for Meyer. I think what just let us know on the chat who you think is going to win this race. This is the most evenly matched race we've had so far this season. Marcus generally had the advantage on Meyer, but it does look very even for tonight's racing. Cornage still holding on to third position, still Bjorklund holding on to the lead of the Pro-Ams, and Bay top of the amateur judges. He did just have a poor lap time to David Bay. He's still 3 seconds ahead of Jeremy De Boer, but he's comfortably pulling away. This is the round that Bay needed in order to really reignite his championship charge. He is standing to outscore a lot of drivers as Rousset making an early pit stop. I think Rousset's car is fairly clean. I don't know if we can maybe even get a replay of what happened to Rousset right at the start of the race, because he spun round at turn 6 and has been recovering ever since, and he's going to come into the pits early in order to get some free air, and he's also going to take a couple of tyres as well, seemingly.
Definitely, I'm sure he was struggling for the first 27 minutes of this race after that spin on lap 1. His tires had to have been just total rectangles.
So it was Fujita on the inside. I think that's netcode. Fujita based in Japan. It's a little bit tricky to tell from that angle, but I think that could have been netcode. That's a shame for Seth as well. He actually had a really good start. You can see he was behind Beifeld, so he was in 6th place. He was up 3 places from his start, and then that happened. What frustration for Rousset. But he has had such good pace that I think he could genuinely finish at the top. Top 10 might be a bit ambitious. Yeah, Kunzelman's probably a bit too far ahead, but I think he could maybe beat Jeremy De Boer for P13. And then if he could get to 13th Rousset, that would be a good effort. And crucially beat his main championship rivals, which are Otterholt and his other rival is Skuret. So he could beat both of them, that would be good.
I was going to say, insert name here for the other driver involved, but yeah, it's a Pro-Am category. You mentioned how parity has definitely played a pretty big effect in that category throughout this season, and certainly that's playing havoc for Eric Rousset, but I think he might be able to put together a very good drive. Even without that, this man, Marcus Beifeld, who just got overtaken there, I believe, by Fujita, he's had a very strange past couple laps. I feel like I remember maybe about 10 minutes ago he was involved in that battle up towards the front. Speaking of in front of them, there was the Ferrari going off there, coming into the final corner. Not sure what happened there for Hoopka Merle. Not sure. We're going to get a replay to see what happened. Maybe he just lost it going over the hill. Certainly these cars don't respond too well, especially light on fuel going over the hill. And that quick drop down just went onto the grass there and loses it. I'm sure the two Porsches up ahead of him, well, the 2 Porsches that were behind him that probably missed that crash by a couple of inches, while that near crash by a couple of inches. I'm sure they're probably going to need a change of pants after this. That was very close.
I think that was some kind of hardware issue, maybe something popping up on screen, maybe some issue with his wheel connection, because that's a very simple corner. It just seemed like he went straight on. Skuret into the pit, so he's made it to the pit window. I'm surprised he didn't pit a few laps ago, actually, Skuret, because he's got damage. He spun at the chicane earlier on at the turn 10A, turn B chicane. But he soldiered on. Maldecleve also in. Shame for Maldecleve how this race has gone on. He was looking good earlier on, and so too was Montini, but he's had his 2nd spin now in this race, and he's down in 28th place. He's pretty much last, Montini, now, of the drivers who are yet to pit, as Cornage is into the pits. Now, that's a bit surprising to me, because he was leading that train, but he's decided to stop giving the draft to his rivals and come into the pits, and I think his teammate Olivieri has got a similar idea.
I think now Thomas Wangen is breathing a fantastic sigh of relief. He's been stuck behind Cornage for the past probably about think, the last 15 minutes or so. He's been stuck behind him for a vast majority of this race. So I'm sure he is seeing that clear air ahead of him and is thinking, finally I can push this Porsche to the absolute limit. And I'm sure he's definitely really, he's definitely wants to push that Porsche right now, because you can see Fujita and Beifeld are very close to him. But right now at the pit stops, I would say they're coming. The pit stops are here. We're seeing front runners, back runners, midfield runners. We're seeing all these drivers come into the pits at this stage of the race. So it's only a matter of time before the 3 drivers we see on screen now are going to come into the pits, and it's only a matter of time before we see the leaders come in as well. So we'll have to see what kind of strategy games some of these drivers play. I'm sure you mentioned a few laps ago, Antonio Sammarco could try and stretch it a little bit on fuel, because he's been in that clean air for a while, for quite a long time. Certainly this man, Thomas Wangen, he was in the dirty air for a while. He did get the slipstream off of the car ahead of him, off of Colnage, but he pits only 1 lap later to try and prevent the undercut.
And interesting, there's a lot of drivers taking all 4 tyres, it looks like, in their pit stops, so 24, 25 second pit stops. And so it seems like, actually, for the first time really this season, I think, this is the 4th time we've had the 60-minute races, it seems like all 4 tyres is the advantage, not just 2 tyres. At least that's what I'm judging from by the pit stop times, and it seems unanimous that everyone's taking all 4 tyres. Wangen pulls away. He is still ahead then of Beifeld. And do let us know in the YouTube chat if we've got that wrong, but at least that's what I'm seeing at the moment. Maybe not actually, because it is slightly shorter pit stops. Certainly Wangen didn't take all 4 tyres. Could have taken 3 maybe, but that seemed quite bizarre. Wangen though ahead of Beifeld, and Beifeld interestingly ahead of Colnage. So he's been able to jump Colnage in the pit stop window. So Mateo, who pitted first of anyone, has come out last out of those 3.
Tough pit cycle for him. We see Sammarco now into the pits and Fujita behind, so Anders Meyer is staying out a little bit, trying to get a bit of time in the fresh air. I believe he might also be traffic free, so we'll have to see what kind of time Meyer will put in. I'm sure he'll probably try and come into the pits at the end of this lap. We'll just have to wait and see what he does. But a lot of drivers playing the strategy game, a lot of different strategies. Some drivers taking tires, some drivers taking 4 tires, 2 tires, or some drivers just not taking tires at all. I'm sure at this track, it's probably the one track where you expect these drivers to really put the tire gap ahead of just having track position. So at this race, it does make a lot of sense that some drivers are pitting for 4 tires.
Sammarco was not one of them though. 21 second station for him. And so he definitely only took 2 tyres. Could have taken 3. I don't think that's really an option for these guys. Wangen ahead of Fujita. Fujita up to 4th position now. He was already ahead of Beifeld, but Beifeld and Fujita both jumping Colnage. I'll be disappointed for Colnage. And of course Colnage was even ahead of Wangen, so he's dropped from 3rd down to 6th in that window. Winkler is still a little bit detached from them, and Isaacson a fair bit closer now in 8th position. But this is the big one, Anders Meyer. Can he pull away from Sammarco? Both of them will be desperate to be a second and a half ahead of one another, break the draft, and be in a race-winning position. Norwegian, who took the race victory last time out at Jerez, perfectly on the marks, and he'll be etching to get away from that pit stop as soon as possible.
In a heated battle like this, with Sammarco closing in at a rate of knots, I'm sure Meyer, he's never had a pit stop feel longer, I feel, and I think he might see that purple McLaren of Sammarco pull off into the distance, or maybe not. Meyer has a pretty quick stop. It's going to be very close here. I think he's actually got to take the lead. It's going to be very close between these drivers. Sammarco gets ahead, but only just. I'm sure Sammarco is a little bit upset, but Meyer put on a fantastic lap there and is much closer to the back of Sammarco's car than he was before the pit stop started.
That could be very significant for Sammarco. I was saying that they wanted to be a second and a half clear of one another, but even the position that Sammarco is now in, with the straight line speed of that McLaren, we saw it back at Watkins Glen race 1, Meyer and the Porsche drivers generally will struggle to overtake the McLaren. And so if Sammarco can just survive these next few corners, he might be in a very good place. I'm not sure how good an opportunity Anderson's going to get later on in the race. They're now 8 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Banging a bit of clear against Fujita. Cornage now under pressure though from Beifeld. Beifeld does need to really push it now. But in fact, actually, Cornage ahead of Beifeld, so because he's got past in the past few corners, and so he's up to 5th position. So that is a change of place. Is Beifeld going to respond? No, he's not. Cornage will keep that 5th place.
I just say David Vey is still putting on a fantastic drive right now. He's still in the 12th position that we saw from him quite a few laps ago. But right now he is obviously running first of the AM drivers, but he's also right near the Pro-Am drivers. That will be an interesting battle to watch. This is a battle we're watching right now, though. It's between the 2 Porsches of Kolnagi and Marcus Beifeld. Beifeld has been cool as a cucumber all throughout the season. He never really pushes the issue when he's trying to overtake his competitors. He could have had a shot to win last week out, or definitely had a shot at a runner-up finish. But instead, he just decided to play it safe and play it safe for the points, which you gotta respect. Even though he came in a little bit late, skipped out on the first 2 races of the season, he is still a force to be reckoned with every week, and is always a top runner here on the ARL GT3 trophy. So right now, he's putting a lot of pressure onto the back of Colnage as he tries to break into the top 5.
Shout out to one of our sponsors for this series, Apex Racing Simulators. Apex Racing Simulators are hosting their open day on the 2nd of September. It's just a couple of weeks away. And so if you want to pop down to the Apex Racing UK Sim Centre in Corby, in the East Midlands in the UK, then do pop along. You'd be very welcome. There's going to be lots of people there. And we're going to have a driver tournament. There's going to be the opportunity to win prizes. Even if you're a bit rubbish at driving, there's going to be a raffle, so everyone's got a chance at winning something pretty nice. We've got an opportunity to try out the simulators, the 8 simulators we have here using virtual racing school equipment. Yeah, there'll be, of course, food and drink and the opportunity to meet fellow sim racers, streamers, professional drivers, and a whole lot more as well. It's all explained over on apexracingsim.com, and there'll be a tab at the top saying Open Day and Open Day 2023. Click on that and you can see all the details. It's going to be a really fun day, so do check out that out. apexracingsim.com, Open Day on the 2nd of September.
Well, if I was made of money, I'd definitely be getting a plane ticket to head over there, because Apex Racing TV has a lot of stuff and a lot of people that you can meet. And Sam, would anyone be able to meet you if they went over to the Apex Racing HQ in the UK? Would they be able to meet you at this open house thing?
I'd rather they didn't, honestly. I don't
enough.
particularly like them. So if they could stay away from me, that would be great. But you know, all the others. So there's some other commentators there. Tim Cox, Aaron Smith. They're nice people. But yeah, me, I'll very much be staying away from you lot as much as possible. Smart is past Vey, meanwhile. Continuing to move up is Smart. He's up to 12th position now. And Vey's still keeping up a very strong pace. But Smart, after starting down in 19th place, he really is showing what his true potential is like.
Yeah, Vey, even though he loses out on that 12th position to Smart, that's still a fantastic drive. I mean, you'd expect all the pro drivers to be ahead of the AM drivers, but right now David Vey is still putting on a fantastic drive right now. He might lose out on a couple positions by the end of this race, because you've got 2 more pro drivers behind him of Bass and Larson, so he might lose out on a few more spots before this race is all said and done. But still, fantastic drive from David Vey to be that close up towards the front, putting on another good drive. He's put on some fantastic races so far this year. It's like every few weeks here and there, he's usually had some tough luck throughout the season, but whenever David Vey has a clean race, he puts it together nicely and puts on a fantastic drive right now. You can see him in the Fendi Racing Team BMW, and right behind him, I believe, is the Koala car.
Yes. The
God bless America.
Koala car.
God bless. That is beautiful. So the new paint scheme seems to be working out for him. He hasn't had any sort of incidents throughout this race. He's kept it clean, and that is a very cool looking car. Actually, kind of makes me feel of winter, even though I know you gentlemen, Samuli, our producer, and you, Sam, are currently in Europe with a Europe-wide heat wave right now. Certainly thoughts go out to everyone suffering through that. As a fan of the winter, I know heat is not my friend. But looking at this car, it feels like winter. It's nice, cool colors. You got a little purple there, nice blue, and white, so it's nice little... you feel cool and crisp looking at this car.
Yeah, I mean, the heat wave really hasn't been part of the UK. It's been an awful summer. But today, it has been quite warm. And so I do very much appreciate the appearance of the koala car on stream. So very much agreeing on that front. The field has mainly split away. We haven't really got any trains going on any moment. There are still a few battles, and this one is one of them. And it's mine, trying to get past Antonino Sammarco. We've got 18 minutes to go. Maybe he's just waiting for him, but that Porsche has been real close. But where do you overtake? He's faster on this part of the circuit, but he can't possibly overtake there. And when he gets onto the straights, the McLaren is just able to pull away from him. Or at least he's unable to catch on the straights, and that's what you really want. So Meyer might need to get creative, maybe a dive into T7, that might be a possibility later on. But let's look at that gap in the top left. Let's see how much it changes. Can he get within 2/10, which is really necessary in order to go for a dive?
Anders Meyer might need to turn on nitrous to try and keep up with the McLaren there. Right now he's losing out on a little bit of time, still very close right now, and is actually closing up a little bit as they go into the second part of this straightaway. But still, I don't think Meyer is going to be able to get the move done going down the back straightaway and going into turn 10. So I think you're right, Sam. I think towards the bottom end of the circuit, maybe going into a corner like turn 6 or turn 7, I think that'll probably be the spot for him to get an overtake done at. But at the same time, at that section of the track, if you get the move done to turn 7, you're probably going to have a pretty bad exit there, because that is a very important corner on this circuit to try and get the best exit you can coming out of T7 to get a great run going down that very long back straightaway. So I gotta imagine that might not be the smartest place to overtake at. So I think Anders Meyer, as you said, is gonna have to get creative here, or find some way to use nitrous in that Porsche to try and keep up with Sammarco down the straightaway. Right now, this man, the two Pro-Am drivers doing a weird shuffling nature there between Stuart Wyness and Gordon Haug here. Those two drivers doing the nice little playful shuffle going into the braking zone of turn 10. They managed to stay line of stern, but right now, a lot of drivers all spread out, no trains, as he said, so unfortunately I won't be able to break out the harmonica that I did earlier in this race and do the joke I did last time. So no one's on the train. Let me get the low note. Oh no, that's a high note. There we go. You can tell I'm great with musical instruments. I was never great in music class, so my father has described me as tone deaf, which is, I think, a fair assessment.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan. I'm a huge fan of that stuff. I look forward to the next time it's used. Rosset is getting past Hawk. Also, a couple of tough laps actually. He was overtaken by Wyness on the previous one, and now he's being overtaken by Rosset. Said Rosset might get to 13th place. That was very ambitious of him. He could get to Asfalg maybe. He'll certainly get Wyness. I think he might get Otterholz. But 17th might be as high up as he gets to Rosset. Remember, he was up in 6th position midway round the first lap. Unfortunately, he had contact with Fujita, and that spun him around. Was last at the end of lap 1. And in a round where it really looked like he was going to make up a lot of points, it's not been the case. This is a free position though for him, because Kjetil Larsen has come into the pits. I think Larsen had a crash earlier on. I wonder if you could maybe see that crash as well, going back some 40 minutes or so. But he's had to come into the pits. He was never going to make it on to the end on fuel, and he comes to a stationary, and we'll just put in a little bit of fuel to get to the end of the race. He should come out in, I imagine, about 30th position.
Yeah, tough for Larson. I can imagine he's going to be a bit upset with how tonight's gone, and still this incident here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't see this one. See what else goes through.
Neither can I. I'm getting a weird
okay.
thing where I can...
That sometimes happens when we look at replays from a while back, but I'm sure the viewers can see it for themselves, and we'll comment on it when we see it on the YouTube stream in a few moments' time. But yeah, disappointing for Larson. Of course, he ended up on the cut through. I am now just saying it, and it was all
He
by
was the
himself,
one
of
going
course.
through
He
the.
unsettled his car, and yeah, made a little bit of contact to the wall as well. I think he had a secondary incident as well a few laps later, maybe Larson, and that forced him to come into the pits. So long night for him. He's now over a lap down.
Yeah, that's tough for him. Got a lot of dirt on his tires at that stage, and right now he's going. I'd say we've had some nice drivers putting on a decent recovery in this race. Some drivers having tough luck earlier on in this race. Certainly one of them was Eric Rosseth, who, as you mentioned a couple laps ago, might be in a decent shot not to catch up to Asphalt, but maybe to get past Oderholt for 16th. We'll just have to wait and see how things play out in the final less than 15 minutes into this race. But still, Eric Rosseth, he might be a bit disappointed with how tonight is going, but still, Rosseth to finish in the position that he is in right now, I think it'll still be a very, very valiant effort for him. So I think he has to get props to finish in the top 20 from that incident he had earlier on.
Yeah, and of course we'll give him confidence as well, that qualifying performance, that he can perhaps get some top 10s, which is what he needs if he's going to be the Pro-Am champion for this season. And as you say, it could mean a whole lot worse for him. Already he's on the back of Wyness though. Wyness has not been able to pull away whatsoever. And despite the fact that Porsche might not quite have the same straight line speed, he's so much faster through the corners that this will be very simple stuff. He's over half a second lap faster at the moment. In fact, on that last one, he actually matched the race leaders for lap times. Seth will have a think about it into turn one. I think he's going to be a little bit too far behind. But yeah, like I said, it's only going to be a matter of time, surely. Out in the lead, gap is at quarter of a second. Samarco versus Meyer. And still Meyer's just a little bit too far back. He's always quarter of a second behind going into this chicane, but he needs to be a 10th and a half behind if he's going to go for the move. I'm not fancying the Porsche's chances right now, unless Samarco makes a mistake.
Yeah, I gotta think that's his only way of getting past. He has to hope for some kind of miracle to befall Meyer and some kind of utter disaster to happen to Samarco. That or Meyer is going to have to get real aggressive here, but he had a fantastic run coming out of the final corner. Gets within 0.2 of a second of Samarco. They're very close right now, but I think that Anders Meyer is in a tough position right now. He's trying to find any way he can. It looked like he was nearly going to go into the grass to try and get past Antonio Samarco here, but I think Samarco is in a very good spot at this stage of the race, but I'm sure Anders Meyer is not going to give up. That was a big moment there from Antonio Samarco. Had that big snap coming through turn 5, and he's going to lose that position as he go into turn 6, but I don't think it's all over yet because Anders Meyer is going to have to take that shallow entry going into turn 7, so I think Antonio Samarco is going to get into that slipstream of Anders Meyer Porsche. These two drivers are going to be weaving side to side, left to right, trying to break that slipstream. And it looks like Samarco is going to look for the move again on Meyer, trying to regain that position that he lost a few corners ago. He gets past, and moves to the moves back to the inside. That was some nice scrapping there, and Samarco grabs that position again after losing it. Meyer, he got a chance at the fresh air there, but unfortunately for him, that Porsche was just a sitting duck compared to that McLaren that's always been a bullet in a straight line.
Well, we called it. We knew that it was going to be at turn 6 or turn 7. We knew that it was going to be a mistake from Samarco. But even when that happened, he was so cool and collected. He didn't decide to send it on the outside, Samarco. He gave up the position. He made sure that he got that nice wide line onto the back straight because he knew that that McLaren was going to have the pace to regain the lead. And if Meyer felt desperate before, he's going to feel even more desperate now because he'll be thinking, what more do I need to do? I think the good news is that Samarco's car looks fairly vulnerable. Because only took 2 tyres earlier on, so it does look like he's perhaps really struggling for tyre grip come the end of this race. But it looks like he's going to need to lose a fair bit more and make a fair few more mistakes as well if he is going to lose this race lead. They're now coming up to another back marker. That is Liao in 29th position. That will be easy enough for them. And they've got a fair few more as well to catch and pass before the checkered flag is waved.
Yeah, this is definitely not over yet, even though we only have less than 10 minutes to go in this race tonight. It's still Anders Myers. I'm not sure if he's smelling blood or seeing red or whatever he's seeing right now. He's definitely seeing the back of Samarco's car, and it's not like Samarco's pulling away right now. I believe Myers actually closed in a little bit after Samarco got that move done on Meyer. I believe Meyer actually was about 0.4 of a second behind, and then he closed up nearly to a 1/10 of a second there as they exited turn 1. They were very close. They're bumper to bumper, basically, coming through the first series of corners. This is some close stuff here. Anders Meyer, he is pretty far back in the championship. He's had some incidents throughout this race. Went for a tumble roll going through the final corner at Fuji a couple weeks ago. So right now, if Anders Meyer wants to make a gun at this championship, he's going to have to go for a bold and audacious move on Antonio Samarco. So I think at this point, Anders Meyer is going to have to try and find any possible way to get past Samarco. I don't think he's going to settle for second. I think at this stage of the season, halfway through the year and how far back he is of the championship, it's either checkers or wreckers at this point for him.
Well, Samarco's really struggling. You can see through the S's there. Meyer basically having to brake through the corners in order to not run into him. He's also pretty good on the brakes as well into the chicane, the turn 10 chicane. First up of the race that last time around for Meyer. Once there was a gap between the two of them, he absolutely quashed it in just a few moments' time. And this could still change. All of a sudden I'm thinking that Meyer's got a much better chance than I did think before, because he is so much faster, and again through turn 1, gains a bunch of time. He'll be impossibly close through turn 2, turn 3. He's just gaining so much, but there's nothing that he can do about it around this narrow part of the circuit. Even LMP cars struggling to get past GTs around this part. Beifeld has got ahead of Cornage. Cornage has actually had an instant. Winkler moves past, Isaacson moves past as well. But this could still change out to the lead. Samarco feeling the need to go a little bit defensive. He has a little bit of a look to Meyer. Now this is his opportunity. He can send it into turn 7, but he's a bit too far back. It's not going to happen. And once they get onto the back straight, it's just the same as what we've seen for the past half an hour, really. Meyer is that little bit closer this time, but the gap starts increasing up. And I think it's going to be the same case as always, with Meyer being a car length too far back in order to go for a move into the chicane.
The one thing that McLaren has, which pretty much is a pretty big indictment of how much Samarco is struggling with his car at this stage of the race, is you can see the flames coming out of the back of that McLaren whenever he's off throttle, and you can see he is off the throttle a lot going through there. I gotta wonder, he was off the throttle probably about a quarter to a half a second before he hit the brakes going into turn 2 last lap, so maybe this is probably a shot in the dark here, but maybe Samarco might be struggling for fuel mileage for all we know. That McLaren has been a bit more thirsty than some of the other cars, so right now he is struggling. Right now he might not be struggling for fuel, but he's certainly struggling to try and hold Anders Meyer off Mattia Kolnagi. Pulling into the pits after the incident we saw with him a couple laps ago, we saw him drop down the order, drop down to 8th from, I believe, P4 or P5. So unfortunately for him, he's going to have to pit to try and repair some kind of damage, or maybe got some kind of penalty or something like that. Maybe just got picked up a meatball flag from the damage he picked up. Unfortunate for Kolnagi, because he was having a very good race. But unfortunately for him, his night is basically ruined.
Yeah, can we get a replay of that Cornage incident? There's not going to be a change between Samarco and Meyer for a few more moments at least, because once again, reports for second behind going on to the back straight. It was for Kolnage, who was under huge pressure from Beifeld, keeping up with Fujita, but he spun round as well, and that's not a million miles away from what Meyer nearly did earlier on. And yeah, you can see the front corner there would have picked up a decent amount of damage. So Kolnage back to 23rd now. Wow, that was a long pit stop. Why was he stationary for so long? He was stationary for 22 seconds. It was so he took a new set of tyres, but of course that wasn't necessary, so I'm not sure what happened there. Unfortunately, Alex Bevans for Kawala is back to the pits as well, and that's a shame for his race to end in that manner. 5 minutes to go, and the gap is less than 0.2 of a second. Meyer's got to send it into turn 7. I think that's where he's going to get it done, honestly. I think he's going to turn 6, but I think turn 7, if he's within a 1/10.5, he's just got to bomb it, but he hasn't quite been that close enough so far.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think at this point, Samarco, and a track like this, which is very hard to pass, all things considered, besides a few spots here and there, I think what Meyer has to do, he just has to go for it at this stage of the race right now. I believe they're going to call one bit of lap traffic here, and that'll be it. We're seeing some more drivers battling farther towards the back of the field. That's the Boiver right now, getting moved, and I believe he was just holding off the position there. I've actually lost a spot there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he did lose that place to De Boiver, yeah. So De Boiver up to 23rd position. Not a good night for Jeremy. I'm not sure what happened to Jeremy actually earlier on, because he was doing very well, wasn't he? And then he's down 23rd, but yeah, he was up 10 places further than that earlier on. In fact, he was the leader of the Pro-Ams for a portion of the race. So very disappointing for the DBR by Challenge driver. Oh, Mike could send it into turn 3 here, but really doesn't work out for you. And then he's so close to almost being able to go for a move down into this right-hander, but he's not quite there, as he has a little bit of opposite lock as well. And following as close as he possibly can early on the power. That was nice for him there. He can continue to close the gap. Not close enough for turn 6, but if he keeps this distance back, he can go for it into 7 perhaps. I mean, this is within dive range maybe, but again, doesn't go for it, and he'll always be second on the dots or coming onto the back straight. Now this is closer though. Usually it's 0.25, this time it's 0.21. It extends a little bit, and you can see the distance extending as well, and Samarco's got a bit of a drop from the back marker ahead as well, and any opportunity that Maya had has absolutely gone. We've got 3 minutes more to go. I think only 2 more laps. As he has a look, he's getting desperate now as Maya, and that has lost him another 1/10 of a second or so. But that's the state that his mind is in right now, that he's looking at moves from that far back.
I think it's a mix of desperation at this point. Yeah, I mean, he's dropping back even more right now, about 4/10 out, so we'll see him close up the gap a little bit here. But you said last lap that you don't expect Anders Meyer to go for a move going into turn 3. I can honestly see it happening, because I think that's the section where Samarco's the slowest. Right now you can see Meyer closed up so much to the back of Samarco as he went into turn 3. I think that'll have to be the spot. It's not really a corner you see too many overtakes at, but with how fast Samarco's car is, you can't really overtake in turn 6 or turn 7, because Samarco's just going to have the run going down the back straightaway to get back at him. So I think Anders Meyer, what he might have to do, I think he's going to have to break out the chrome horn here when he goes for the move on Samarco, because of course we're not going to condone bumping other drivers off the track, but with how strong Samarco's car is, just on the final straight line blast, pretty much if you can get down here just fine, if he gets a good exit coming out of turn 7 and has a decent run coming down the back straightaway, that's pretty much Samarco golden, because Meyer is just too far back to make a move and go for the lunge going into turn 10. Although I say that there's quite a lot there. I think what Meyer might be doing, it's like a cat playing with a mouse before he eats it. I think Meyer is a bit desperate at this stage of the race, but I'm sure he has to know in his mind that at this point in the race, he has a tire advantage over Samarco. He has a pace advantage going through the twisty section of this circuit. So I think right now, and we're the final few laps of this race, I'm sure Meyer has to play it cool, but he also has to know that he's going to have to go for it here on Samarco sooner rather than later.
Just a lap and a half remaining. We paid a lot of attention to this battle. We have been able to catch a bit more of the other, but honestly, this is really good. Really, really good. This is the battle we want to see between the two of them, and it's fascinating to see as well a race between two cars which are so different to one another, something that we don't always see in sim racing, where the cars are often very similar. Instead, in this racing, they're becoming so much faster on the streets. The Porsche so much faster through the corners, at least the way that these guys have configured their machinery. And there's not going to be any opportunity towards the end of this lap. They got Colnage up ahead, but I think Colnage is pulling away from these drives. He's on fresh tyres, I think, after another pit stop they made. Asphalt has had an issue. He's off the circuit. He may have well hit the wall as well. Disappointing way for the Pro-Am drivers race to end. It does promote Otterholt and Rosset to the Pro-Am Championship contenders up a position. They'll be thankful for that one. But Alton leads Samarco now 4/10 of a second ahead. He's going to be close again, Will Meyer. But if anything, his challenge has sort of gone away ever since that half move that he made into the chicane a few laps ago.
It's closed up a little bit. Oh, we see another car going off. I'm not sure who that was. Having a big
Scarrett,
slide there.
I believe.
Yeah, Scarrett there on the inside there. The other green and white Porsche there on the inside. As he went through turn one, you could just see puffs of smoke, and the Porsche stopped on the inside. But thankfully for these two drivers, fairly out of the way, so it didn't get involved in this battle. Neither did I think will the other Porsches ahead of them. There's a Porsche there. Marcus Beifeld's going wide coming through turn three. Not sure what happened there, but I think Samarco, I think he might have this in the bag. I'm sure Myers, we might see the send of a lifetime going into turn 10, because unless something major happens, I'm pretty sure Samarco has this in the bag. He has the slipstream with the cars ahead of him, and I think Samarco has this.
It's been a fantastic draw, one of the best I can remember in the Apex Racing League GT3 trophy in all the 6 seasons that we've covered. But it's going to be another race victory, and keeping up an impeccable record, a perfect record in the A format races. Antonino Samarco wins again, and just one slide from Anders Meyer was enough to relinquish the lead, and Samarco's defense held on sternly for the entire rest of the race. Meyer will be bitterly disappointed with second position. It's the 3rd time out of the 4 60-minute races that he's finished runner-up to Samarco. And Vangen will round out the podium. Top of the Pro-Ams will be Kim Andre Bjorklund. We've barely seen him all night. He was right on the tail of Kunzelman for most of the race. Gets a big haul of points. Superb performance from the Norwegian. And David Bay, who has been showing very strong signs recently, particularly at Watkins Glen a couple of weeks back, hasn't always materialised, but he manages to finish in 12th position. Seems like there's been an issue for Eric Rosseth right at the end. I wonder if Rosseth has run out of fuel. We did only just edge in an extra lap, and he is trying to coast it. And one of our championship contenders in the Prams, he'll barely make it to the line here because it's uphill. Once he gets to the crest, he can just catapult his way down. I think he's going to be last of the drivers on the lead lap. They're still racing behind Pugh, Willems and Crook, rounding out the top 20. Where is Rosseth? Will he beat Verm? It'll be very tight across the line. I think Verm is going to do it. He has got past. And Debreva. Colnage wasn't quite there though. So Rosseth holds on to 23rd place. But he will perhaps be the most frustrated of anyone. After an amazing start and an amazing qualifying performance, Rosseth with an awful, for him, 23rd place.
Yeah, it was just a topsy-turvy nature of tonight's race for him. He had a fantastic qualifying, as you said, got involved in that incident, dropped back like a rock after being stuck on the grass for a while, trying not to have an unsafe rejoin, then cut through the field like a hot knife through butter. Managed to get up to 15th, I believe, but then ran out of fuel on the last lap, and this is probably the worst track to run out of fuel with a high level of elevation change right towards the end of the lap. So unfortunately for him, he winds up in a bitterly disappointing 23rd.
Well, we'll have an interview with a few of our drivers in a few moments' time, but first up we'll have the race results, and I'll also give a quick shout out to Apex Racing Academy, another sponsor for this series, offering some of the prizes for our champions for this season. And Apex Racing Academy, of course, providing over 20 data packs for a variety of cars in iRacing. That includes several GT3 cars, but also prototypes, single-seaters, tin tops, and also rallycross cars as well. Do check out apexracingac.com in order to get a bronze, silver, or gold subscription, and to get faster on iRacing. There are the results. Samarco ahead of Maya, Vangen. Fujitsu, very under the radar Fujitsu, but brilliant 4th place. Once again, his race pace so much better than his qualifying pace. Winkler managed to get up to 5th position. He'll be satisfied with that one. A few things happened in front of him to help him to get into that place. Isaacson in 6th. Beifeld with that late incident on the final lap sent him down to 7th. Olivieri was in 8th. Then was Gunzelman. Bjorklund top of the Pro-Am. Smart very top of the Yams. Bass, Otterholtz, Wines, Horg, David, Pugh in 18th. There's Willems, Crook, Verm, De Boiver, Rosseth, Colnage, Collishaw, Muldercleve, Scarrett, and Cabral. Of course, Scarrett with that last lap spin, I think dropping him a couple of places. There was Cabral, Larson, Leo, De Boiver, Asfaug, Livingston, Bavans, Montini, Yanni, Hupkamil, and Weston, Samson, Clysons, McBride, and Devlame Mink was the last of the drivers. Fortunately, 34 out of 42 drivers finishing the race, so not too bad numbers there. we are going to have a chat with a few of our drivers, and I think this might be the first time I've had a chat with Antonino Sammarco so far this season. I'll drag him right up. Antonino, congratulations. Wow, what a tense race that was for you. You must be in a bucket of sweat right now with how tense that race was.
Yeah, I'm sweating like hell, to be honest. I didn't thought that I can win this race. My target was just to stay behind Anders and save fuel, save tires, because I had like in the last 10 minutes I had 0 tires. And yeah, this was my whole target, but then I saw that Anders was spinning in turn 1. I had to go for it. Otherwise, I think I would punt him or something like that, but yeah. I'm so happy that I won this race. Like I said, I never expected to win this today.
No, like some races you've absolutely dominated this season, but it was clear by qualifying that Anders was really bringing a good challenge to you. When it came to the tyres, I think you took rear tyres at the pit stop, is that correct? Were you surprised by the amount of tyre wear that you suffered?
No, I changed the left rear and the left front, so both left sides. But I think I had to go for like 3 tires. This was my mistake, but yeah, it was still drivable in the end.
Yes, it worked really well, and of course, you know, the straight line speed of your McLaren really helping you out. I mean, when you race, do you race this McLaren a whole lot, and is that, you know, the racecraft's element where you're almost impossible to overtake on the straights, does that come up very often?
Normally the McLaren isn't that strong on the straight line, but I was surprised. I was surprised too on this race that I could easily pass Anders on the straight, and yeah, I knew if I don't do a mistake, it's still impossible to overtake me on a straight line for him. And yeah, but normally the McLaren isn't the strongest on the straight, but yeah. I'm happy that he didn't drive a Mercedes, for example.
Absolutely, yeah, you may have been a little bit more tricky there. Well, congratulations, Anthony. You know, it's been a fantastic season for you, and to complete this 100% win record in the 60-minute events is an incredible achievement. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
No, my friends were watching. I mean, I'm not driving for a team, so I don't have teammates, but normal friends, I would greet them, and thank you too, guys, for the awesome commentating. And yeah, I hope you keep it up, I keep it up, and yeah, let's have fun.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you will keep up your side of the deal there, Anthony. No mistakes so far this season. Congratulations on another win, and best of luck. You can replicate it next week.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Antonino Sammarco there, his 5th race victory of the season and his 4th out of 4 in the 60-minute events. Ron, who would you like to have a chat with?
One man that I've always gotten a chance to interview, which is always a great pleasure because I always get some good insight from him, is your AM winner tonight, David Vey, who has a very good insight whenever we bring him into the booth. David, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. How's the race?
Let's go! That was very good. I feel relieved, of course. Before the race, I felt really stressed because when yesterday I was practicing, I didn't feel comfortable with the car. It was bouncing everywhere, and I didn't trust the car as much as it would be comfortable, but today the qualifying wasn't that bad. It was really close in the M class. I think it was 4 hundredths the difference between the top 4 in the M class, so we were really close to each other. And before the race, my goal was to keep most of the M's behind me and potentially gain some points on those people who seems to will be my enemies in the championship. And in the end, I had some luck. I had the pace, and I had luck with the setup. It worked pretty well. I was able to overtake the M guys ahead of me, and yeah, in the end, I had to defend from one of the pro drivers. I think it was Ethan, and he almost got me because on the last 2 laps, I caught up in some lap traffic, and he didn't want to let me by. So yeah, he almost got me, but I managed to keep P12. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Still a pretty fantastic race there, taking the other win tonight at AM. Now, you mentioned earlier in the other response you gave about how important car balance was tonight, and probably the most important part of the car's balance is a rubber on the road. How important were the tires in tonight's race?
I'm usually very hard on the tires. I'm usually eating the tires pretty much, so I was a bit concerned because of the tires, but I didn't take tires with my pit stop, and in the end, I almost used the entire tire because I ended up with 40% on my front left. So yeah, I don't know if it was a good choice, but I managed to keep that position. So yeah,
David,
it was
thank
a
you.
hard one.
Yeah, David, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. You put together a fantastic race. Anyone would like to give thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you to my team, Fendi Racing. They are a really good team. They are supporting me in my league racing and everything. So I would like to thank to them, and of course my friends and family.
There you go, David. Thank you very much for joining us. Put together a fantastic race. It's always great to have the insight that you give on these interviews. Thank you very much, David, for joining us.
Thank you.
That was David Vey giving us some nice words of insight at the end of tonight's broadcast, and I'll pass it off to you now, Sam.
Apologies, I think my mic was muted. I think we'll have time for just one more interview to round out the broadcast, and we need to have a chat with Anders Meyer, because Anders, man, oh man, you must be feeling pretty rubbish right now, I imagine, because it's very rare that you lose a race by such a narrow margin.
Yeah, for sure. It's P2 is good, but I wanted more today. I think if I didn't have that mistake in T1, I might have actually won the race, because my car was so much quicker from the first corner to about up to the straight, but from the straight and into the finish, the McLaren was crazy. I don't know. I had to run maximum wing on the Porsche to be able to take T1, and still I almost lost out in T1. And every lap before that, I was struggling so much in T1. Yeah, I don't know. Not much. Without that mistake, probably I could have won. So it's my own fault. But yeah, it's a bit feels a bit bad right now. But overall, good points.
It is, yeah. I mean, at the time we thought the slide, because I thought you were in the wall, honestly. It was a fantastic save. And I thought, okay, lost the lead now, but of course might be able to bring it back in the pit stops. Didn't quite happen. Then of course there was that one opportunity that you had when Samarco made the mistake ahead of you. You were alongside into turn 6 and turn 7. You look back at that, do you think there was anything you could have done, or do you think that McLaren was always going to power past you on the next straight regardless?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's much I could have done. That was pretty close. He covered the inside when just at the right moment, right before we had to consider braking. So it's hard to say. Right there, right at that time, I didn't feel like I could have done much different. But yeah, that save in T1 was pure luck. That's my biggest issue with the Porsche, is that I have pretty low force feedback because I have an old bad steering wheel. So I don't feel the rear slipping before it actually does it. So yeah, that was a bit luck, and a bit good that I have been doing sim drifting before I started sim racing. But yeah, no, in the straight line it was too fast. So in that duel, I don't know, maybe I could have been more aggressive into the braking, but I don't want to cause an accident either. So
No, yeah, it was a good recovery, and in the end, second place. Good points for you, and I'm sure another race victory is only a matter of weeks away. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, Anders?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my team, Racing Lab, esports, and the sponsors, Racing Lab, KTM, CarX, Winstra, Motorsports Arena, and Mosa as well. We are the official Norwegian Championship is starting on Sunday, so I don't know how much time I will have to practice for this league, but Mosa are with us for that series, so it's awesome to have them aboard. And thanks to you guys as always.
Awesome, well, thank you very much, Anders, and best of luck for not only this championship, but of course the Norwegian Championship starting as well.
Thank you.
Anders Meyer, there, your runner-up finisher tonight, and I think that pretty much rounds us out for tonight because we are already gone beyond our allocated time. But a quick word, Ron, on just the next round of the championship, Phillip Island, one that we really don't visit a whole lot anymore. It used to be visited quite a bit when I used to join the sim, but now not so much. What were you thinking about that one? It's not a very common car track combination, that GT3 is at that circuit.
Maybe it'd be better if I unmute myself there, but yeah, I think it'll be a interesting challenge for some of these drivers. I'm sure they might be a bit rusty driving around Phillip Island, so hopefully they have enough time in the week before that race to get enough practice time and hopefully put on a good show in 1 week's time.
Yeah, it will be good. I don't think all these young people, I mean, as a veteran of 2016, I do classify myself now as a veteran. I know Phillip Island well, but these guys can not know which way round the first corner is, so we will see how they deal with that one. Once again, thanks to SDK Gaming, to Virtual Racing School, to Apex Racing Academy, and to Apex Racing Simulators for supporting this championship and supporting this stream. Of course, if you've liked this stream, please do leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel, plenty more action coming up. Porsche Cup tomorrow, the season finale, and that F3s on Friday. Well, next Friday, actually. Of course, this Friday, we've got the season finale of the Apex Racing League Endurance Championship, and plenty more coming up as well on Apex Season 2. So do give the channel a subscribe, and also check out our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But for now, from myself, Sam Fitzpatrick, from Ron Mons, and from Samuli Kumo, we are going to say goodbye, and we'll see you back next week at Phillip Island. See you then.